And here we are. I was so paranoid. I remember last week I had to fire it up 3 times to get it going. So apparently whatever was going on last week, not going on this week. So we like that. A few minutes before 1 o'clock here, Eastern time. Again, I got to keep telling myself that my iPad is off, but I've got my cell phone here with the clock on it. I do have a Gatorade, although it's cooled down here in Michigan. The week before Labor Day was hot. And over the Labor Day weekend, it cooled off a little bit. It's been cool ever since. So I got no problem with that. I did go out and do a quick jaunt in my Viper on Friday. I had a lot of people asking me why I hadn't done any Viper videos lately, and I realized I had a good excuse to do one because I had lowered the seats. So I found a nice piece of blacktop out in the country and did a quick run in the Viper. If you didn't see that, poke around on my channel, and you'll see the Viper ride I took. I actually had the idea at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I actually did the drive, videoed it, edited it, and uploaded it in time to do a premiere at 4 o'clock. So, Amy Jo, thanks for taking us along on the ride. Hey, we're all here for the ride. Oh, boy. The Fuse Man, I have yet to see any second-generation Chrysler minivans during the Viper cruises. Yeah, were those minivans built to last? I'm curious about that. Daniel Kester liked the Viper video. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Steve Hatchie? Happy Sunday, Steve. I hope I got your name right. If I didn't, please give me a pronouncer and let me know. Ram 50 V8, good afternoon. And to you too, my friend. Dixie Champagne, happy Sunday from Middle Georgia. And Dixie, thank you for the correspondence. We've been chit-chatting back and forth. Dixie's been out on the motorcycle. Jay Provo, greetings from rainy Welland, Ontario. Welland. Is that along the canal, as they say? William Firefighter 09, I hope I'm getting that name correctly. But you'll notice I'm wearing my Copper Harbor Volunteer Fire Department shirt today in honor of all our first responders, but especially those in Copper Harbor. It's a small town, so they got to pull together. Sarah Callahan, cool, downright chilly, in my opinion. Well, you know, it all depends on what you consider cool and chilly and otherwise. JP checking in. Howdy from sunny and warm Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you, my friend. JP's also been helping me behind the scenes with some technical issues. Last night at about 11 o'clock, I was corresponding with JP trying to resolve some technical issues. Here's the thing. I know a lot of stuff about the law and other things, but I'm not an expert on internet and networking and things of that nature. So at that point, I start asking around. Mr. R, hi now from South Carolina. And Fred Stewart, good afternoon from Ravenna, Ohio. We've got a Ravenna in Michigan too, and I always thought it would be Ravenna, but people say Ravanna, and they pronounce the E like it's an eh, like a A sound in a bat or cat. So there are only 2 genders. Asks, will you start the Viper from time to time during winter to keep the seals wet? I am going to put the Viper in my heated garage. I know exactly where it's going to go. I'm going to slide it over to the side as best I can to keep it out of the way so I don't bump into it. I might put a car cover over it. We'll have to see about that. I certainly will be putting most likely a trickle charger on it, but I do plan on cleaning it all up and winterizing it before I put it away. And once it gets put away, I'm guessing in October, that it'll be parked there for at least 5-6 months. Because I'm going to put it away and leave it away. And then I'll break it out in the spring, which you never know. If we have a bad winter, that might be May. If we have a light winter, that could be March. Steve Hashy says French pronounce hash, and yes, a joke or 2 or 3. Hashy. Okay, there you go. Daniel Kester, hey Steve, like that new set decor to your left next to the fin plate, and thank you for the use of the word decor. I like it when people throw in different words. But I believe, is this the first time I've done a live stream with the it is. I didn't do a live stream last Sunday, and I apologize. I didn't do a live stream last Sunday. I was up north Labor Day weekend, but I've got the award from YouTube, and I had a lot of people asking me about that, and actually saying, Steve, you've got over 100,000 subscribers. Why don't you have your award? And YouTube has got a thing and actually frequently asks questions, and they say, if you get over 100,000 subscribers, you are eligible for an award. And they're very, very careful to say it, eligible, but you do not get one. You are not entitled to one. And they actually say, we will contact you. Don't contact us. And so I thought I wasn't going to get one. And I've heard of people who didn't get one. And so I was at 143,000 subscribers 10 months after I crossed 100. And I got the email saying, congratulations, you've crossed 100,000 subscribers. I'm like, yeah, 9 months ago and 44,000 subscribers ago. But hey, better late than never. So I got it. I held it up in a couple of videos. And then I actually mounted it on the wall with nails and a hammer. And so, yeah, I've taken a hammer to these walls already. I'm going to start arranging license plates, I think, on this side over here and some other stuff. I'm going to try to declutter by expanding out and using, because there's some dead space up here I'm not using. And there was some dead space over here, so I'll do what I can. But hey, Mike Geertz is checking in from Washington State. Mike, of course, is our horse expert. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Brian Bell, greetings from the colonial area of Williamsburg, Virginia. Yeah, checking from the colonial era, a little more difficult. Canadian Robot Lady checks in and says, hey, Steve Lato, congratulations. Steve, yes, we are that good. Yes, you are, my friend. And of course, Canadian Robot Lady, I meant to send you a note. I got a couple really nice emails. I'll forward them to you. But for those of you who don't know, I broadcast, and I like to use that term, broadcast in the United States of America, which makes me an American. And the voice at the beginning and ends of my videos, the welcome introduction and the outro, as I call them, are voiced by a woman who is in Canada. And I've done 2 interviews with her. And we nicknamed her the Canadian Robot Lady because early on, when she simply did the intro, I had people accusing me of using a computerized robot voice. I said, no, that's an actual human being, my friend. And many people didn't believe me. And so I asked her at one point in time if she would simply say, thank you for listening to Lato's Law. Oh, by the way, I'm not a robot. And she did that. And people thought it was funny. So ever since then, I've given her a license, as we say, to say anything she wants at the end of the videos. And that's what she's doing with those outros. So I greatly appreciate it. But every now and then, people do send me very, very nice compliments, emails and messages and otherwise saying, hey, Steve, let her know that we appreciate those. And I actually get a lot of people who tell me, they say, Steve, you know something? I look forward to your videos to see what you're going to talk about. I also look forward to hear what she says at the end. William Firefighter 09, the Robot Lady is awesome. LOL. Alex Rosenbaum, Steve, who writes Canadian Robot Lady's script, you or her? She does. She has full editorial control. And by that, I mean, I've sent her suggestions. I like this, I like that. And I've had other people send me stuff and said, hey, could you add this to the mix and have her say this? And I've done that before. But she does them on her own. And I've told her, if you think it's appropriate, knock yourself out. And my only concern ever is whether or not anything she said as a joke might be inappropriate, the video that preceded it. But I double checked that. So Mike Geertz, smoke is pretty significant so far. No flames for me. Of course, Mike's on the West Coast. And there is a lot of that kind of fire and stuff going on out there. It's horrible. Hang in there. And I hope you can stay out of trouble. But it seems like every year the season of the flames out west gets longer and more severe, and it's a crying shame. So I hope everybody's safe out there. 2000 MCR, the $100 bill question, and I'm always scared to look for it because I know where it is, and I'm always worried it fell or something. The Fuse Man says the California smoke's even getting to Europe. Wow. I saw some things about where it was going, and it reminds me of like when a volcano erupts, and then they'll say like, a little while later, the ash will fall over here, that kind of thing. So Wild Bill 57 points out that without the Canadian Robot Lady, the old videos seem empty. I had a guy post a note this morning on one of my oldest videos that's up, and it's literally called episode 35, I think, or 42, or it's just a number from the first season. So there's no episode, there's no season number. There's just an episode number. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, like this seems so archaic without, I forgot what you word to use, but it just seems so like old without the good microphone, without the good camera, actually, without the background, without, but he actually said, he goes, but the content is good." So that's really the key, So Robin Lewis Brown, happy Sunday from Aberdeen, Maryland. Thank you for checking in. I assume that's where the Aberdeen Proving Grounds are for the military. And Aberdeen, of course, proving grounds are very, very well known in the circles of people who understand like military vehicles and so on. I know that they actually have a collection of vehicles out there that have been tested out and they left them there. I'm not sure if it's a full-blown museum or not. I'm sure somebody can check in and tell me. But I've never been to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, but I know people who have. So the Fuse Man says, at least we can count on the same haircut from season 1 until now. The only difference that you're going to see is when about a year and a half ago, I had facial hair. I had a beard and mustache. And I liked the look more than I thought I would, but I didn't really enjoy it to the point where I wanted to keep it. So I had it for the summer and I shaved it off. And I've had people who watch the videos when I had it, they go, "Oh my gosh, look at you with facial hair." Among other things, I think it makes me look older because a lot of it came in dark and then there'd be streaks of gray in it. And again, people ask me if this is my natural color, and this is. I mean, if you don't believe me, you can look at the hair on my arms is blonde as well. So, but Tom, you working on any new books? Not at the moment. I'm kind of between projects, as they say. Fantas is rocking the pineapple cut. That's pretty much it. I've also heard it called the Bart Simpson. But I had it before he did. I can remember. Here we'll talk about how old I am. When I was in high school, the cool thing was for guys not to have short hair. You wanted to have long hair. So my hair got kind of long and feathered looking, And I remember one of my first jobs out of high school, when I had a little bit of money, going to get my hair cut, and a young lady convinced me. She goes, "Dude, you got to cut your hair. We got to cut your hair." And she cut it. I mean, she chopped it. And this is right around the time, like, Sting and the Police and Billy Idol, that kind of thing. So I looked at it, something, I kind of like it. And the thing is that with long hair on me in particular, it falls down, it gets flat. So, I know guys who don't have any hair, so I'll take what I got. Jennifer Davis, hello, Steve, from Smoky, Oregon. And I hope you're doing okay. We've had a couple other people comment on the smoke and the fires. So do what you can. Matthew Shostrom, Steve, a jury of all random whites or a jury of all black lawyers? Which would you prefer to have pass verdict on you? Are you saying a jury of white lawyers or white non-lawyers versus a jury of black lawyers? Because you're throwing in two variables there. I mentioned that I would be uncomfortable being tried by a jury of blacks if the jury was selected by kicking off all of the white potential jurors. That's all I said. So, the one thing I can tell you is if you're leaving your fate in the hands of a jury, you've already screwed up. Meaning, don't break the law. If you break the law and get caught, try not to go to trial because, roll the dice. You could win. You could also lose. So that's my thought. Somebody indicated that blondes have more fun. Donald Whittemore. They say that, but how would we know, Dixie Champagne thinks the Braves might be on, but that can wait. What's funny is I was talking to my good friend Dave today, who's also helping with my technical problems. Just a heap of technical problems. And Dave goes, "Hey, Steve, how do you think the Lions are going to do?" I'm like, the Lions are playing? He goes, yeah. I go, oh, do they ever win? And he goes, yeah, you're right. So, Brian Bell, do you have any cool or funny stories from law school? I've got some more specific. I've got one I can't tell. And the only reason I'm telling you this is I'm planting the seed. There's something I have to do before I tell the story. And I might make that my 200,000 subscriber story. So I think I might be able to resolve the minor issue between now and then. So I'm going to, excuse me, I got something in my eye. It's got to be bad form to look in the camera to see if you got something in your eye. Next thing I'll be checking my teeth. But I have a story that is one of the funniest stories that I was involved in. It happened in law school, but I can't tell it yet. And there's a specific reason why I can't tell it yet, but I'll be able to tell it shortly. So how about this? As we approach 200,000 subscribers, as we approach that benchmark, be sure to remind me, I know you will, that story is hanging out there and that I've put it out there. And I will do what I can to resolve the single issue before I tell it. I hope I can. And then I'll tell it, and then we'll all get a good laugh out of something that happened a long, long time ago. Dixie Champagne claims I'm too handsome for facial hair. Don't know what that means. I mean, theoretically, but not really. Rob R., do you have any employees? And if so, are you withholding Social Security taxes per the recent executive order? At this exact moment, I do not have any employees. So, no. Renette Gordley, Steve, thanks for keeping us informed on basic laws we may need to use once or twice in our lives. Thank you. I've got a lot of people who say, Steve, why do you talk about stuff we may only need once or twice in our life? So you can look at this either way. But Tommy, how realistic is to acquire an impartial jury for a high-profile case? That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. There's actually a very, very funny Saturday Night Live episode where they had a skit, and I believe they were trying to pick a jury for O.J. Simpson. And the only people they could find were people who'd been in comas or who had brain damage because everyone had heard of the case. And of course, you don't get disqualified from sitting on the jury simply because someone's heard of the story. It's whether or not they've got preconceived notions or have heard so much that they couldn't disregard that and listen to the facts. And that's a problem. That is a problem. So there are stories out there that you know of cases where you look at it and go, there couldn't be an impartial jury in this case. It'd be impossible because the stories are so widely told and widely publicized. And so, you know, that is a problem. But then what's the alternative? You know, you really couldn't say, well, too much pretrial publicity. We'll have to drop the charges now. So, Lemzia says, in a video you said you did a 100,000 subscriber special, but I can't find it. I retitled it. It's called the $16,000 belt buckle. So go to my channel and search bar, type in Leto and Buckle, B-U-C-K-L-E, like the thing on a belt, $16,000 buckle. And that's a story I told, and I'd saved it specifically because I knew it was a good story. And it was one of those things that was just off topic enough that I had not been inclined to do a video about it, but I knew that people would enjoy it. Matthew Showstrom, current amount of toilet paper you've received. I only got the 2 cases, but those 2 cases are going to last me well into the winter. Oh, Brian Bell, is anyone else getting intermittent buffering and or black screen flashes? You know, that's the one thing I can never tell. I can never tell how good it is out at your end. I can tell you that I'm set up the exact same way I always am, which is I am running a hard cable, an actual cable from my computer directly into the back of the box that brings the cable into the building. So there's no Wi-Fi involved. There's no nothing. It's cable to cable, and it's heavy duty cable. So we should be okay. Fred Stewart, draw the jury from the Amish. That should be fair. Yeah, until you add. Oh, I won't do any religious jokes. Sorry. Wild Bill 57, like the Buckle story. Hammond Eggers is very choppy video today. Boycott watch. Have you ever said anything like bovine feces instead of the actual words in court? I never have. And I'll tell you, I worked in radio for 20 years, and Canadian Robot Lady can confirm this, that when you work in radio and you know that you'll get in a lot of trouble for using the wrong word from time to time, you learn to have two different speech patterns or two different mindsets. So when you are in front of a microphone, you filter out certain things. So when I get upset, you might hear me say darn or something, but I'm not going to swear because I'm so used to being on the radio. And I'm not in the radio anymore, but I was long enough to get that. So when I walk in front of a microphone, I shift gears. Same thing in a courtroom. Same thing in a courtroom. I've been in a courtroom where I wanted to lay into somebody and say stuff. But you know, the thing about it is you can't. And it's the same thing. I suppose most people, if they go into a church, for instance, once they're in that building, their mindset changes a little bit. So it's not that hard to do. But the fuse man, oh, pshaw. Canadian Robot Lady, absolutely. Rob R., why don't you run for a Michigan representative seat? You know, I actually considered it briefly. I took a look at it. Michigan's got term limits. So every couple terms, a seat opens up. Whether they want to run or not, they can't. And so there's a vacancy that you can run for so it's not that unheard of. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, do I really want to put myself out there, not like this, but where like out of state interest groups will spend tens of thousands of dollars lying about me to get people to vote against me. And I don't want to do that. So, Old Pueblo Vegan says Southwestern School of Law, Los Angeles Alumni Association. I'm not sure if I'm reading this out of context or if you said something earlier, but I've mentioned before that I went to school in Los Angeles at Southwestern University School of Law, Los Angeles. And it's a little unusual for a couple of reasons, one of which is that they are simply a law school. They are nothing else. And what happened was somebody founded a law school around, I think, 1910, 1920. And they called it Southwestern University School of Law. And they planned on expanding Southwestern University into other schools. But they started with the law school, which is backwards. Many schools out there, like the University of Michigan, has a law school. But they founded the school first and then expanded and added a law school. So Southwestern just never got around to expanding the other stuff. So that's the one unusual thing about it. And number two is they have a 2-year law program. So I enrolled and actually showed up for my first day of class on July 5th of 1 year. And 23 or 22 months later, graduated and had a degree. So it was less than 2 years. And the washout rate was horrific. There were people I got to know for a brief period of time who disappeared. But very, very grueling program, but it was enjoyable. I'm glad I did it. And it made me a lawyer 1 year faster. Made some good friends there. And so Southwestern University School of Law, very few people outside of California have ever heard of it because it's a very, very large school in downtown LA, but most of their graduates stay in California. Ram 50 V8, did you get a chance to see the video from YouTube I sent this morning? I did not. I was editing video. Renette Gordley in California, why don't you need to pass the bar to practice? Is it other states as well? Are you talking about the recent events with COVID, or are you talking about ever? California is I believe, the only state in America, there might be another, but I hate to use qualifiers, but in California, you can take the bar exam without attending traditional law school. But there's a bunch of other stuff you have to do, and very, very few people actually do it. It's very, very difficult to do it that way. But in theory, if you could not get into law school, or if you couldn't graduate from law school, in California, there's a way to, you basically apprentice and study, and you take a preliminary bar, you pass that, but you can become a lawyer and join the bar without getting an actual JD. That's the big distinction. Now, there are some states, I don't know if California is one of them, but there are some states right now where you can get your JD, but not offering a bar exam because of COVID. And I did a video about Florida, for instance, where they asked all the purported bar takers to load a program on their computer so they could take the bar exam. And once they loaded the program, their computers were locking up and getting hacked. And it was a big, big problem. So some states actually said, you know something? We can't give the bar exam now safely. So what we're going to do instead is let people who are recent graduates apply to become provisional lawyers. And you can become a provisional lawyer until such time as we can offer the bar exam. So somewhere down the road, they'll have to take it. Dan DeClerc says, Steve, you're overdriving your mic. All the time or just some of the time? And the only reason I ask is that there's 264 people in the room and you're the only person who's made that comment. And I never touch the controls on the microphone. And the microphone volume is actually controlled by the camera. So, Renette Gordley. Oh, okay. Thanks, Steve. Hey, you're welcome. Ram 50 V8's popping a bit. Huh. Dave Beddoes, I didn't pass the bar. I sat the bar instead and had a really good beer. Oh, Old Pueblo Vegan says Georgetown law grads are called Hoya Loyas. Oh, boy. Dan DeClerc says there's a slight distortion at the peak volume. Have you played with the volume on your device? Only reason I ask is this is the exact same setting I use for my videos. And on my videos, which I edit on a different computer with really, really good speakers and monitors and stuff, the volume is fine. Unless I'm simply talking louder right now than I am normally. So that could be possible. Maybe I should slow it down and get all quiet. Salty Shellback says that they could run political smear ads against me, claiming anonymous sources reveal that Steve Leto once pulled the tag off his mattress. ZKR99, if a provisional lawyer loses a case and doesn't pass the bar, can his client sue him? No, and I suspect what would happen is if there was an actual situation where a provisional lawyer actually had an important case and lost it, I suspect that before the case actually started or someplace along the line, a judge is going to ask the litigants on the record or the defendant, you understand you've got a provisional lawyer. Do you want to do this or do you want to, and get it that way? Somebody asked, Don Jackson, if one is able to pass the bar exam, why does it matter if he or she went to law school? That's an interesting question, but I guess it's the same reason that, why go to medical school if you can pass the exam? I think the concern is that you would study for the exam and learn how to pass the exam without actually, but it's an interesting question, so I don't make the rules. I'm just aware of them. Daniel Kester, a great maintenance practice. If it works, leave it alone. That's actually one of my mantras. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And one of the things I can tell you is that this microphone, other than me accidentally bumping it, hasn't been moved. I actually marked the table. The table's got markings on it where the base goes, and it has not been moved. My chair it's on carpeting, but the carpeting is marked where the four legs go. And this cable runs out the back of the microphone and it curls up and goes into the camera. And I have not touched the settings on my camera in over a year. So when I moved one studio to the next, I actually kept all these things connected together. I measured all the distances and I recreated camera, microphone, chair from one studio to the other. So there's going to be some acoustic differences because the room is different. But the volumes and the focus and all that stuff should stay the same. Somebody asked me a good question. Steve, great name. Steve, have any of your videos been demonetized lately? Yeah, and this is a very, very technical, in-depth question. I'm not sure how many people care about this, but I've had videos demonetized, and the problem is that YouTube has systems where they can scan a video. In essence, they take a video and they run it through a computer, and the computer listens for certain words or phrases or concepts, and they're pretty obvious what they're looking for. And if you have one of those things in there, it gets flagged. And the first step is the computer flags it, and the computer says this might be inappropriate. And if you want to, you can leave it, and they'll limit the ads, they say, but they're not going to block all ads on it. But you can appeal that. Say, hey, look, I don't think there's anything inappropriate in this video. And so I've done that before, and I've won the appeals on 8 out of 10, I think it is, possibly 8 out of 11. But I've had 2 or 3 that got demonetized, and the most recent one was really annoying. And I can't tell you what the topic was because the second I say it, this will get demonetized. But if you're a YouTube creator, you know that you go into one page as you're uploading a video, and it says, is your video appropriate? And it goes, does it include any of these topics? And there's one topic down near the bottom that I almost never talk about. But if I mention a word from that topic, then it gets flagged. And so it's one of those things, like I said, if I said the word right now, can't do it. So, but yeah, Renette Gordley asks, what happens with all the money if you lose the appeal? Well, they just demonetize the video. And so I've got 2 videos going up every day. The Fuse Man says, can you type it? No, I can't. That's the problem. How badly do we want to know this? Brandon Davis, you got it. I'm not going to say it out loud, and I hope that doesn't get me demonetized. So, Matthew Shostrom, the first as opposed to the latter. JP says that Scotty Kilmer gets most of his live chats demonetized. Really? What's he talking? Well, don't tell me what he's talking. I don't want to know. Oh. Well, Duncan Campbell says we really want to know, and somebody above guessed it. 2 people have guessed it, and I said that's it. So, yeah, William Firefighter 09 says my biggest issue with my channel is the limited ads thing, and that's it. They don't actually say you'll get no ads; they go to be limited ads. But we all know that, Infanta guessed it as well. Mike Garrett says Steve gets demonetized every time he mentions Big Pizza. No, Big Pizza demonetizes you. No, Big Pizza controls everything. It depends on how well you're speaking of Big Pizza. Walter Soapcheck says you can say pew pew, but just not a 3-letter word. But there's a problem, and I. It's I don't want to go down this road, unfortunately, because no matter how much you tap dance around it, eventually I'm going to step in it, and then boom, there goes the video. So Rational Bushcraft has called it out, and I believe that is correct. And you have to understand YouTube's point of view. YouTube is a big corporation. And YouTube gives people like me a platform and says, look, you can put your videos here. And if you want us to put commercials in your videos or in front of your videos, we'll split the money with you. And so now they become a broadcaster in essence. So then YouTube goes out to the world of people who buy commercials and they say, do you want to buy commercials? Now, you can't expect every advertiser out there to go, oh, yeah, I want you to put ads on this one, put ads on. No, they go put our ads on, and they'll say, like, we want our ads on a channel that gets a lot of guys watching, or a lot of women below a certain age, or women above a certain age, or maybe put ads on videos where there are a lot of people watching who have hobbies involving such and such. And they know a lot of this stuff to some extent, okay? And so one of the things that advertisers are worried about, though, is if their ads get affiliated with something that they consider to not be as friendly as they'd like to be. So that's why, like, for instance, the wonderful world of Disney on network television, they could sell ads all day long because everyone knew that if it was Disney, it was so family safe, anybody could watch it, right? But of course, there are some shows out there on cable that you might not want your company advertising on because it might seem kind of weird to have that relationship. And so unfortunately, I think YouTube has said, look, there's certain topics, legal or not, that some advertisers won't be comfortable with. So we're just going to flag those out because there's more than enough channels to choose from who don't talk about that stuff. So I don't fault them for that. But it's just one of those things that I think a lot of YouTubers like myself go through a learning curve where we discover these things the hard way, because you will put up a video that you're convinced is safe and they'll flag it and they don't tell you. That's the one big complaint. They don't tell you what it is. You got to guess. And so you get one video flagged, another video flagged, and you're going, what do these two have in common? And they might not have anything in common, or they might actually have some weird thing in common you hadn't thought of. That's always possible. So Ram 50 V8, I hate to say this out loud, but thanks to YouTube's poor ads, I run ad block. I don't hate to say it, We've all heard the radio stations, we're going to play music commercial free. They know people don't want to hear the commercials, So Dave Beddoes, are you going to do anything to the Viper for winter storage, like putting it up on blocks? No, I'm going to put it in my garage. I've got a heated garage. I'll put it in the garage and I will park it, and I will probably go out periodically and move it around so as not to get flat spots in the tires. But I'm not going to actually lift it up off the ground or anything like that. I might put a trickle charger on it too. But I'll talk to some friends of mine. I'll talk to Mark Lieberman of Nostalgic Motoring fame, what he thinks I should do with it with respect to winter storage. So we'll do that. 90 Knot says you should do a video of nothing but you laughing. Your laugh is the best. Well, I appreciate that, but I got to tell you, I also get complaints about my laugh. I don't know what to tell you. So, oh boy. Daniel Kester, I don't mind the commercials as long as they're at the ends. I actually don't have commercials at the end of my videos. That's one of the choices they have. Again, this is all YouTuber insider information. But when you go to the page that says, where do you want us to run videos or ads? Number one, I told you I've turned off the internal ones. I hate those. But I say, yeah, before, and also the desktop, which I think is a default. And it goes, would you like us to run them after? And I said, I always say no. And the reason I say no is I think it would annoy people who want to watch one video and then watch another, because you're expecting to see an ad before the next video, but not after the last video. And I think that'd be annoying. It's kind of like, I think network television's even figured this out, where if you watch some TV shows, they will purposely overlap the end of one show with the beginning of another show to get you into the show before they show you the video. And so I think that running an ad at the end of the video and before the next video would be too much. And again, I might be splitting hairs here, but I'm always going to err on the side of less rather than more when it comes to ads on YouTube. Alex B, are you going to take the Viper to the track? I doubt it. I have no urge to take it to a road track. I know, I could go to the M1 concourse in Pontiac, which I did. I went to a Cars and Coffee there earlier this year, but I didn't drive the track. But I mean, I parked on it. But track driving doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'd rather do the curvy driving out on the roads. I wouldn't mind going to a quarter-mile drag strip, though, and running it a couple of times down the quarter mile just for fun. When I was in high school and a young man, we would occasionally, launch from a dead stop to see how fast we could go, and never broke the speed limit ever. And when I shot the video on Friday of taking the Viper out on the country roads, I did one fairly aggressive start, and I hate to tell you this, but it could go much faster. It could go a lot faster. I could also smoke the tires a lot more. I'm not beating on it because I don't want to beat on it. But if I took it to a drag strip and ran a couple quarter miles, I think I'd enjoy that just to see. I'm also curious how many gears I'd get through. It's a 6-speed, but it'll do 16 first. So we'll see somewhere down the road. Fred Stewart, new t-shirt idea. Steve loves curves. No, the Viper loves curves. G. Vogt says, we figured out what the word is. Well, it's that whole category of words. It's that word and all of its synonyms. Synonyms. All of the words that mean that same thing. Matthew Shostrom says, Steve, you changed shirts from your thumbnail again. Did I? I didn't think so. ZKR99, when it's time for new tires, will you roast the last of the old ones in an epic burnout for us YouTube fans? The question is, how long will they last? I just bought a brand new set that have about 2,000 miles on them, so we'll see. Ram 50 V8, have you legally found the max speed you're comfortable with in your Viper? Well, I can tell you right now that there's roads in Michigan that have a speed limit of 75. And on 75-mile-an-hour speed limit roads in Michigan, you can do 80 all day long, and cops won't bat an eye. And you can do 85 if you want to keep up with traffic. And I can tell you that my Viper in 6th gear, 85 miles an hour, about 1,500 RPM. And this is my finger doing an RPM tachometer. The red line is 6,000. So it's got a long way to go. Long way to go. Daniel Kester, did you take a picture of your Viper before you started driving it from the front? Oh yeah, I've got my Viper is very, very well documented. Scott Billman, what are the blue books on the lower shelf? Are you talking about these blue books here or lower? Those blue books are the Michigan Compiled Laws, MCL, and those are the laws of Michigan. Ram 50 V8, don't do the burnout. You were, and I was a tow truck driver. You know the results. Yeah, they get out of control once in a while. Boycott watch. I was once stopped for speeding driving a Chevette. I went to court and told the judge it won't go from 0 to 60. Drop from an airplane it would. My brother had a Chevette, and they were disposable cars. The Chevette, the Pinto, the Gremlin. There was a time when you could buy a car from Detroit that cost less than $2,000. And even back then, their dollars, that was still cheap. And they were just disposable cars, hand crank windows, plastic interiors, a 4-cylinder engine. That's, I don't know how big they were in terms of displacement, not much. And everything was as cheap as possible to get an entry-level car that got decent gas mileage, because they're trying to compete with the imports. And my brother's Chevette, I forgot if he bought it brand new or low mileage. I think he bought it low mileage. And he drove it for quite some time and put a ton of mileage on it, I think delivering pizzas. And then he sold it to my other brother. And my other brother kept it on the road for the longest time. And I remember one time pulling up the driveway at my parents' house. And my brother's back there working on the Chevette. He's got the hood up. Like, what are you doing? And he's, oh, and I walk over and look. And where the shock absorber was mounted to, like, you pop the hood and you can see the mount sticking through, and there's a bolt here where the shock absorber is on the other side. The whole thing, it is busted through, and there's a big hole in the metal where it was all just rusted. It was Michigan, and so he jacked the car up to get that shock absorber thing back down below where it busted through. And then he took iron straps that had holes drilled in them, but like, I don't know what you call it, just iron straps. And he ran one this way and one this way, and he welded them or tacked them down. I think it was welding though, but welded them, all four of them down, so that there was one where they crossed one hole that the shock absorber would go back through, and then he did it that way. And he got another, 6 months or a year out of it. But, there's a reason you don't see those showing up at Cars and Coffee for the most part. 99% of those cars are in junkyards. They were in junkyards so long ago, they were not classics, and they were disposable cars. They were designed to fall apart like that, and they did. So, Mark Heil, what is your top speed so far in this car? I have not gone crazy in this one. I will admit to you that. I have, in a previous vehicle, very similar to this one, been in the vehicle and is doing over 150. Notice I said in. I was in the vehicle. Duncan just asked a good question. I made the mistake of clicking the button and it went all the way to the bottom. They don't make Vipers anymore. Somebody must have asked. Yeah, they stopped making Vipers a couple years ago. And there's always rumors they might bring it back. Oh, these blue books. Yeah, these are Oxford English Dictionary. Sorry. Yeah, I always forget those are blue also. They're dark blue. Those are actually half the set. The other half is lower. These are two shelf units. There's two shelves in each unit. And it's 20 volumes in the collection. So there's 5. There's 5 below it. 5 right there, 5 below there. It says 20 volumes, the OED. Donated to me, by the way, by a very nice couple from Wisconsin who took me seriously when I said, no one loves me enough to get me an OED. Betty Boop says, my Datsun B210 would do 60 on a downhill slope. Yeah, but it probably got 60 miles to a gallon. My chemistry teacher in high school had a Datsun B210, and we used to make fun of that guy, and we laugh, and he'd go, yeah, but you know what kind of mileage I'm getting? And back when gas was 95 cents a gallon, but, he'd get in that car, fire it up, and putter off, and he was laughing at us, so as long as you're happy. FDSS says, Steve, would you like to hit the salt flats once for top end testing? By the way, my name is Hunter. I'm here a lot. I have one problem with Bonneville salt flats, and it's all the salt. And I'm not joking. I've got friends who owned the actual car that this model is based on, and they took it to the Bonneville salt flats for a documentary that I'm actually in, talking about Bobby Isaac. And when they got it back, it's a nightmare to clean the salt out of it. It is just a nightmare because the salt goes everywhere. And the problem is that salt is very, very corrosive. You don't want to get salt all over the inside and underside of that car. I'd be tempted to just to see what it would do, but I'd also to buy new tires because the tires I have are not rated for speed. Mike Geertz, Jay Leno says girls don't like Vipers. Generally speaking, Jay is dead right on that one. One of the funniest things is that a lot of guys who like cars just assume that everyone likes cars, don't they? I meet guys who are like, huh? Who cares about cars? But it's even more so, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but a lot of women simply don't find cars as emotionally fascinating as men do. And it's just one of those things, talking to women about cars can be similar to women talking to men about shoes. I would have thought that shoes are something you put on your feet and you walk around in. Who cares? Oh, no. These are Louboutin. They're Louis Vuitton? No, they're Louboutin. What? There's nothing wrong with either one of those. So, Joshua Sweet says chlorine is assault. Yeah, I don't bathe my car in chlorine though either, do I? I mean, in terms of getting it underneath and up inside the engine compartment and so on. $90 knots. I love cars. See, this is where I wish I had the capability of doing two-way on this, because I would now quiz you and offer you a prize if you could answer a few car-related questions. But I'll have to, like I said, one of these days I'll get the setup to where I can do that. One technical issue at a time. Oh, JP just asked Canadian Robot Lady, what about fast shoes? Is that combining your love of cars and speed with your love of shoes? Oh. Zaphod Bibelbrox just makes a statement about chlorine, and I'm only going to point that out because Zaphod Bibelbrox, of course, is the name of the two-headed alien from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. And I recently started watching the BBC television program of that. The movie they made in Hollywood wasn't that bad, wasn't that good, kind of middle of the road. TV program, very, very low budget. But it's still funny because Douglas Adams had a hand in it having that made. So, well, Bad Drivers of North Texas says, throw out a quiz question and see who gets it right in the comments first. That's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking about, because when someone goes, I like cars or I know a lot about cars, I would simply ask a couple basic questions and ramp it up. And, and just see how far that goes. Climb the ladder of education there. Matthew Showstrom, Steve, a higher existence gives you the choice to get rid of COVID-19 or civil asset forfeiture. Which do you choose? Well, that's an interesting one because in my mind, civil asset forfeiture is evil, and it's a man-made evil, whereas COVID-19 appears to be a disease, and it's obviously causing a lot of bad things to happen. But I think that eventually it will run its course and go away like most other diseases and plagues and so on. So I would suggest I would have to get rid of civil asset forfeiture. The problem, of course, is that no one lets me make these decisions and have them count. D. Wood, the BBC radio series was good too. Now, I have a question. Did you just say that because you suspected I'd appreciate it? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm a huge fan of Douglas Adams. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but the other books he wrote also, the Salmon of Doubt and, Dirk Gently. And I've studied all of the Hitchhiker stuff. And so those of you who don't know, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a best-selling novel written by Douglas Adams. It's humorous science fiction. It's very, very funny stuff, brilliantly written. It's an unusual genre. Pretty much the guy just invented a genre and wrote a bunch of books. They're very entertaining. And what happened was he was actually a writer living in England, and he had done some bit work with the BBC. And at one point, even, he worked with Monty Python. And one day, he actually jokingly thought to himself, he was I think he admits this, that he was drunk, laying in a field in France, basically broke. And he had a book with him called The Hitchhiker's Guide to France, or Hitchhiker's Guide to Paris, maybe, I don't know. And he's looking up at the stars. The whole world is spinning, probably from being drunk. And he's thinking about this. And the phrase Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy popped into his head. And he just took that idea and ran with it. And he goes, this is actually a funny concept. So he wrote a screenplay for a radio show. And he pitched it to the BBC. And he said, I'd like to do a radio show on the BBC. And the BBC, has all kinds of wacky stuff on there, including, basically the radio dramas. So they said, sure. And I think they gave him a very short commitment, either 6 episodes or 10 episodes. And so he wrote these scripts for a radio program. And he never knew if it was going to get renewed or not. So he was routinely putting in cliffhangers where if the story ended, it would end. But if it picked up, it would pick up. And so the BBC radio program was a huge, huge hit as far as those go. And then BBC Television approached him and said, do you want to make a TV show? Somewhere along the line, a publisher approached him and said, do you want to turn it into a book? So he wrote a book also, and then he wound up writing, I think it's 5 books in the trilogy, at least 4, as a joke. And so there's the radio program, the TV program, and the books, and they're all slightly different. And it's fascinating to read. If you're into it, you can go back and a lot of this stuff. And in some of the books I've read, the later books, he passed away now, but he wrote some explanations to explain kind of like what happened and how it is that, because the storyline changes when you go from the radio to the TV to the books. And then Hollywood made a movie out of it, and they did a passable job, but they screwed up a couple of things really bad, including Zaphod Beeblebrox, who's a 2-headed alien. And on the TV program, they got the heads side by side, and on the Hollywood version, they put the second head down here, which doesn't make any sense. So, anyways, Nathan Miller checking from Berrien Springs, Michigan. Hey, thanks for checking, my friend. I appreciate that. Tom, I thought it was 42 books. Of course, 42 is the answer. Well, what was the question? Oh, and Hunter says he's trying to get with me to help me set up StreamYard. Hey, one thing at a time, and I apologize. I know you've offered to help me, and I apologize. I've just been buried with stuff. People go, Steve, how do you get anything done? I don't. The only thing I get done is my legal practice and my videos. Everything else is a shambles. Steve, 2 questions, no more odor. What mic do you use, and why do some states keep convicted felon off juries? The first question is easy. This is called an Electro Voice RE20, and it's a common broadcast mic. If Canadian Robot Lady will check in, I'm sure she can confirm that almost every radio station in North America uses this microphone. Very, very forgiving microphone. And I like it. Costs about $400, so if you want to get one. But it's a good investment if you're into the good sound. As for keeping felons off juries, it's just a choice they make, and I think they're worried that if somebody has been convicted and spent time, that they are going to probably be inclined to be anti-judges or anti-police, or I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that's what it is, but I know it's common. So Canadian Robot Lady says, yep, good mics. I use a Rode. But what did you use at your last couple radio stations? Because there's a bunch of very good microphones they make nowadays for people who do podcasting. So, for instance, there's a company called Blue, BLUE, that makes microphones for podcasting, like the Nessie. My first few videos, if you look, there's a ball microphone in front of me, and it's silver, and it's made by Blue. It's very, very good microphone, very easy to use. But it's not as good as this, but like $100 maybe. So they're good. When I do my radio show in Australia, I call in and I use actually that microphone because of the way my setup is. It's complicated, but that one works very, very well also. So that, I'll recommend that. Ilya Lawa says, let's talk about chess. Who's your favorite player, living or dead? Okay, I am going to qualify this for you, and I'm going to tell you that my favorite player, and I'm simply basing this on his over-the-board stuff, Bobby Fischer, is without question one of the most brilliant chess players to ever live, possibly ever. I know there's people now who claim that, judged on ratings and stuff, that Magnus could beat him if, in fact, they'd ever played head-to-head. But Bobby Fischer was absolutely, in real life, a jackass. In his later years, he was a horrible, horrible person. But if you go back and look at the games he played in 1972 and earlier, his chess playing was so far head and shoulders above his competitors that he's one of those rare examples of somebody in sports. And I have to include this in sports because you can't talk about games, competitive games, the same way because chess. But very, very few sports, you see someone's career arc where they get to the top of their game and just go, I'm done. And Bobby Fischer did that. In 1972, Bobby Fischer won the World Chess Championship. And he had conquered every level of chess, not just close games, not just close matches. At one point in time, he went through tournaments undefeated, didn't lose a single game to anyone. He, in the challenger matches that were setting up the World Chess Championship of 72, he beat guys 6-0. No draws. White, he wins. Black, he wins. White, he wins. Black, he wins. No one does that. No one's done that. It's insanity. And there are good chess players today. And I've mentioned before, there's a guy on YouTube, Agadmator. Antonio is his real name, but I don't know what Agadmator means, but he's in Croatia. I watch his chess videos, and there are one or two of the videos he's done where he's analyzed Bobby Fischer games. And you can sit there and watch them, and you realize the guy was actually operating on a different level. And I am convinced that one of the reasons he quit in 1972 was that he actually looked around the landscape and said, I'm bored. I beat everybody, and I'm bored. And so that doesn't happen. There have been a few other examples. There's of course, Corellon, Alexander Corellon, the wrestler, the Russian wrestler who did Greco-Roman wrestling. And Alexander Corellon, at one point in his career, was undefeated, and no one had scored any points on him. Like he was just shutting everybody out. And Greco-Roman wrestling is a very, very strange discipline in wrestling. And he did lose his final match, and he lost it to an American, Rulon Gardner, I think is the guy's name, who beat him. But the thing about it is that in the match prior to that, Alexander Corellon had torn a muscle in his shoulder, and he should have stopped. But the problem is that he did the injury in the match that would have gotten him into the gold medal round. And he was undefeated his entire career. And he actually thought, you know something, I'm wrestling for Russia. I've got to go out there and wrestle. And even then, I think he lost 1-0. But Alexander Corellon, and again, some people go, wait, Steve's talking about wrestling now. Yeah, I am. Go into YouTube and look up Corellon, Karelin, Alexander Corellon. Greco-Roman wrestling is the wrestling where you're not allowed to use your body below the waist, meaning that you can't grab the leg, and you also can't trip using your legs. It's all above the waist. It's extremely difficult. And so most of these matches involve two big guys like jockeying for position, and then eventually after, they get tired, one of them falls down and loses. Alexander Corellon was a heavyweight. He's like 6'8" or something, just a big, like carved into a solid block of muscle. And he invented a move that only he could do. And that is if somebody's on the mat, laying flat on the ground, remember, you can't work below the waist. He'd reach around the person above their waist, pick them up off the ground, and then swing them around and slam them on the ground. And when he first did that, they said that the referees are looking at it going, perfectly legal, and they give him points for the takedown because he picked him up and took him down. And the move, it's called a Corellon. And the greatest thing about it is that it's not fun to be picked up and then slammed on the ground by a guy who weighs like 280 pounds who's made of solid muscle. There were people who forfeited simply when they saw the draw. So that you go to a tournament and they set up the grid as to where you're going to go, the brackets, and some guy who would draw Alexander Corellon in the first round would actually forfeit. Just that, I'm out, leave. And think about that. You train for months and months and months to get into a tournament, and you draw that guy and you go, I'm done. So that's a guy who almost made it, but not quite, because he lost his last match. And that's true of the hero myth, the Joseph Campbell thing, right? But Bobby Fischer, back to Bobby Fischer, played his entire career up to 1972. And I realized he came back later and did a thing with Boris Spassky later, but that was an exhibition. It wasn't a tournament. They got to the top of his game, looked around and realized, I'm all alone up here, and quit. So, mind bend. Steve Leto, is there a subject you will not talk about? Yes, all kinds of stuff I know nothing about, I won't talk about. It's just I occasionally know stuff that I don't mention until it comes up. And then I'm like, oh, good, I get to talk about that now. Was the moon landing a hoax? Trying to come up with a subject you might not want to touch. Interestingly enough, my thing about the moon landing is not that it was a hoax or not. I mean, obviously, I think we went there. I've actually looked at that. I'm fascinated by conspiracies, real or imagined. And I think that the evidence would indicate that we did, in fact, go to the moon and so on. But the funniest thing of all is the people who talk about that and go, oh, yes, we won the space race. Depends on which race you're talking about. We didn't put a satellite in orbit first. I know that. So, oh. Lemsia, you mentioned that a person that had a large monetary judgment against them and they appealed might need to be bonded. Why and what if they didn't? Generally speaking, in most courts in America, you sue somebody and you win, you get a judgment against them. The judgment becomes payable in 28 days, oftentimes 21 days, whatever the time frame might be. But within that time frame, that person can often appeal. Well, everyone knows if I owe you money and I can stall it, I'm going to stall it, right? So a lot of people will simply stall by filing an appeal. So the courts, to make sure that you're not doing that just to gain advantage, will often say, okay, you can file an appeal, but you need to put that money up into escrow to prove that you're not doing this for the wrong reason. And so if they got a judgment against you for $100,000, they might make you put 110 up and put it in escrow. So in a roundabout fashion, if somebody appeals a judgment, you might not mind because you know it's collectible, because the second that judgment gets upheld, that money's in escrow, you can grab it. Ilya Lawa says, there's a great video of Corellon having a barbecue with his buddies in minus 30 Celsius, wearing tank tops, nonetheless, wearing tank tops. That's funny. And yes, Ilya, I assume if you're Finnish, you would know a little bit about Corellon, because of course, Finland and Russia share a border. And so in Russia, he's a national hero. He's not as well known outside of the wrestling realm here in America. And of course, over here in America, we've got big time wrestling, which is a whole different thing. So, Dixie Champagne says the capital of the Uperland and where it would be is an interesting debate. And what Dixie's getting at is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Okay, so you got the Lower Peninsula here, the Upper Peninsula here, and it's two peninsulas. About 38% of the landmass of Michigan is in the Upper Peninsula. And so some people have suggested that the UP could become its own state, like Superior. And the question is, if it became its own state, one, is that a good idea? Number two, where would they put the capital? And I think pretty certain that they'd put the capital in Marquette. Marquette's the most populous city in the Upper Peninsula. It's pretty centrally located. It's already got courthouses there and all kinds of other stuff there. But Dixie's pointing out that they could say, hey, why don't we put it in Calumet, which was a pretty big town at one point in time, but it ain't one now. So for sentimental reasons, I would suggest Calumet, but I think practically speaking, it would have to go into Marquette. So there you go. Gert Nutterts says the subtitle for 2020 could be The Year of Conspiracy Theories. It's amazing what happens if people have too much time in their hands. Well, that's true. And also, it's amazing what happens when people are forced to behave differently. And, simply going to a store and putting on a mask, you wouldn't think it's that big of a deal. people do it willingly in Japan all day long. I see photographs of people walking around in Japan and China wearing masks all the time. So it ain't going to kill anybody. But one thing I can tell you, and I have to tell you funny, I just realized I forgot a funny story. So I mentioned that I went up north this past weekend, and the stuff behind me, none of this is sponsored. None of this is advertising. It's just stuff that was either sent to me or I bought myself because I think it's cool. So top shelf, I paid for all 4 of those. Lower shelf cars, all donated. So I'm walking through an outdoor mall in Mackinac City, which is at the very, very top here of the Lower Peninsula. It's the south end of the Mackinac Bridge. And I was walking around and I saw a store that sells Grand Traverse Distillery products. Now, Grand Traverse is an area over here, but not far from Mackinac, But I like the Grand Traverse area. So I saw Grand Traverse Distillery. So I thought, I'll go in there to see what they have. Now, you guys know I'm not a big drinker, but I go in. I'm a looky-loo. I walk into the store and I'm wearing a mask. I am wearing a mask. I'm in there for about 3 minutes. And I hear someone go, Steve Lato. And I look, because I don't recognize the voice. And I go, do I know you? The guy goes, you're the guy from YouTube. And I go, no way. And he goes, yes. I recognize you. I go, really? He goes, yeah, I recognize your voice. So that, my friends, was the first official full sighting in the wild where someone recognized me. Now, I mentioned before, I was driving my Viper through Gaylord, and at a drive-through to a restaurant, a man yelled at me, he goes, hey, are you Steve Lato? And I said, yes. And he goes, well, I saw the Viper. So he made the connections to the Viper. I mean, how many people are driving around in a Viper like that? Not as many as you'd think. So the fact that I was in the Grand Traverse Distillery and the guy recognized me, and it was one of the guys who owns the place. And so I said, well, what do you guys got here? And the guy goes, well, we got all kinds of locally distilled stuff from the Grand Traverse area, including cherry-flavored vodka. And if you've ever been to Traverse City, everything is cherries. Cherry capital USA, cherry capital airport. They got a cherry festival every July. Cherries, roadside stands, cherries, you just falling out of the sky on you. And so they actually made some vodka with a cherry hint to it. So I bought a couple bottles, put one on the set, and a couple days later, I got a comment on one of my videos, and the guy goes, hey, dude, thanks for stopping in and saying hello. I said, hey, thanks for recognizing me. So the great thing about that is, of course, that I was in a, mall, up in northern Michigan, and being recognized, in that context is pretty cool. So Fanta says, it's only going to get worse. Good luck. No, I don't consider it bad. It's just one of those things. I suppose it could get worse. I mean, there's people out there who can't walk around in public, but I doubt I'll ever get there. So Dave H, is the hair and the height. That probably does help ID me if people can get a good look at my face. Like I said, though, the funny thing was the mask, So Mark Heil, a friend, gave me a bottle of bacon-flavored vodka. I don't plan on ever opening it. The funniest thing of all was I jokingly asked, I go, what's cherry-flavored vodka taste like? And the guy goes, oh, here you go. And he pulls out a little cup and pours me some. So I mentioned I don't drink a lot, but it's not like a religious thing. Like I can if I want to. I'm certainly old enough. So I took a swig and I said, yeah, it's actually interesting. It's interesting. I'll take a couple bottles. Oh boy. No more odor, says Mr. Steve will soon need a bodyguard when out in public, especially if that means ex-judges see him. Yeah, I wonder. What's funny is Mr. Steve. Mr. Steve. I had a client who called me Mr. Steve. Oh, Adam Alexander's an attorney who works with me on a lot of stuff. Good friend of mine. And every now and then he'll call me, hey, Mr. Steve, Mr. Steve. So Mark Sparks says the Viper is old enough. You should have shared. That's an interesting point. The Viper's 21 years old. And the cool thing is that if that vodka was all I had, I could probably run the turbine on it, right? So Ram 50 V8, have we an update on Johnny Knoxville? I think he's just working. Because he checked in a couple weeks ago, but I've not heard from him in the last week or so. Amateur Shooter wants to know, is magnet fishing season almost over? I've not gotten a chance to go magnet fishing yet, so I assume it's going to get there pretty soon. ZKR99 says Steve should have way more subscribers. Well, it happens. No, I gain, it's steadily climbing, just slow and sure wins the race. American, hello from Gross Eel. Gross Eel is an island, assuming that we're talking about Gross Eel, Michigan. Gross Eel is an island downstream, in essence, from Detroit. Very, very cool place. I've been out there a couple of times. In fact, I talked to somebody the other day who just visited there. So, Fanta, what do you think of Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad? Better Call Saul. I watched his show, the show Better Call Saul. It's interesting. It didn't do enough to get me into it, so I stopped watching. But it's interesting. Bill Jeffson too. Hey Steve, which one of your videos will explain the watch for low-flying owls at the end of your videos? If you were to go to my page and hit the video button, just show the videos. Look at the thumbnails, and one of them has a thumbnail of a road sign that says "Watch for low-flying owls," and the name of the video escapes me, but it can't escape me for long. Because it's the video I did about a guy was flying an airplane and he came in too low and he hit a truck. And when he hit the truck, it caused damage to the airplane. And he sued the truck driver under Michigan law, saying that was an off-road accident for which the airplane should be compensated, the airplane pilot. And I thought that was a strange outcome. But what are you going to do? So I didn't have an illustration. I didn't have an illustration for an airplane hitting a truck. And I remembered, though, that I did have a photograph of the sign, "Watch for low-flying owls." And it's a real sign. It's a real photograph I took myself. And I'm scrolling way back. And I'm wondering, how long ago did I do this? Hang on. Did I miss it? Oh, boy. Hang on. The name of the video. Oh, it's not that. The video is entitled, How Could I Be So Wrong? But there's the thumbnail. And it's episode 6.551. 6.551. How could I be so wrong? But I'd pulled that video out, or that thumbnail out. Because of that, I wanted to get something to illustrate that. So thanks, I'll find it. Thank you for asking. The Fuse Man, from an owl's perspective, what is considered low or high for that matter? Well, this is interesting. This was actually in Florida, in the Keys. There is a place not in the Florida Keys. It's over on the other side. But there's a place where there's owls that nest on the ground, and at night they're very active. And the problem is there's some nesting sites along the side of one road. And so a lot of owls will be flying in, and because there's cars coming by, cars were hitting owls. So they actually post a sign that says, "Watch for low-flying owls." And I don't know if the sign helps or not. You think they'd put up a sign for the owls, "Watch for cars." But the problem is that, owls don't read signs. So, Keith Gregory says he hit a low-flying owl once himself, driving past a tree, and it dropped down and hit it. Yeah, and that's a sad thing. These things happen. I've never hit a deer or anything like that threatened me that badly, but I've run over some other stuff. Just if you drive a lot, it's bound to happen. It's kind of sad, so I feel for you. Betty Boop says, don't miss Steve Leto's True Tow Truck episode. 5.29 classic. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. D. Wood, my nephew attended Northern Michigan, and he heard them describe Marquette as, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. I know people who went to Northern Michigan or some schools up north from the Lower Peninsula who'd never been up there before and just thought, well, it's Michigan, snow, how bad can it be? Marquette can get bad. The Cuna can get worse. Trust me on that one, my friends. Blah, blah, blah. Panther Crossing. Yeah, that'd be down in Florida. The numbers down there are really low, and that's one of those things. You'd feel bad if you hit one of those. I would, at least. And JP's breaking into French in the chat. That should be illegal. Just joking. You can speak any language you want. Just don't expect me to respond to a French question. Oh, boy. Keith Gregory has hit 3 deer. Yeah. Walter Soapcheck, Sanibel, Florida. Thank you very much. I was having a mental block on that one. Sanibel Island is a little island off the Gulf Coast of Florida. And it was out there that I encountered the Watch for Low Flying Owls sign a few years back. And it's one of those things. I take a lot of photographs that amuse me. And, I have them all on a hard drive someplace. And I'm like, I remember taking the picture. Hang on, let me find it. I think I spent longer looking for the picture than I did shooting the video. So, Jay Provo, great show, Steve. Take care. Thank you for checking in. Appreciate the attendance that you were here. Amateur shooter, Arizona has night hawks that are all over the roads at night. Hawks? Really? Wow. I can tell you I drove cross country once, and I think I was going through Arizona right around sunrise. I'm talking about the moment when it goes from pitch black to twilight, okay? And I was on, was it 10? I could be wrong about that, but due west, highway, only car on the road, zooming along and seeing like an army of bats flying. And I forgot which way they're going, but they're coming from one direction, all of them. And there were hills on one side of the road. And clearly the bats live there and work there. And so presumably sometime around dusk, they got up, they flew over, did a bunch of stuff over here. And just as the sun's coming back up, they're all heading back home. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's, one of those things, you drive cross country, you see kind of stuff that you weren't really expecting, but you just, wow, that's neat, so. Dixie Champagne, I saw my first moose in the Yup near Seney 5 years ago. Okay, you got me on that one. I've never seen a moose in the wild. I've seen bears. I've seen deer. I've seen all kinds of stuff. There are only a handful of moose in the Upper Peninsula, not counting the ones on Isle Royal. And I know people who've seen them over near Baraga, Lance area, near Marquette, but I have never seen a moose. In fact, there was a moose in Sault Ste. Marie not too long ago that was swimming down near the locks, which is a crazy thing. But I've never seen one in the wilds. There you go. Amateur Shooter, the Ditched Jeep Rescue, episode 5.277. Thank you. That's a great story. And what's sad about it is that I had some of these things happen to me before, video cameras were ubiquitous, as I like to say. And so now you film everything. right? If nothing else, on your cell phone. But I had photographs of us pulling the Jeep out of the ditch, so I can prove that happened. But crazy story. Nathan Miller hit an elk going over the Rockies. Yeah, I've seen elk out west also. Never near the road, though. But yeah, you wouldn't want to hit one of them either. Amateur shooter, ever seen a big cat in the wild? No. There are a couple mountain lions in Michigan. They've confirmed that they exist. Not many. And I've never seen one. So Peter Mandix, we have moose here in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Like the sign says, don't pet them. It raises 2 points. One is, if you've seen them, I assume you recognize how big they are. Moose are huge. A lot of people don't know, just think, oh, a moose is like a deer, just different antlers. No. They're in different weight classes. They are. See, Alexander Corellon of ungulates. Assuming it's an ungulate, I'm not sure. But is it? Someone tell me. So moose, number 2, please tell me you saw the video of the woman getting tossed by the buffalo at Yellowstone. If you haven't, go look it up. There is a video where there's a bunch of buffalo have crossed over the road, and so cars have stopped. People are taking pictures. And there's one person filming, and that's the film you get to watch, and they're narrating, and they go, oh my gosh, this woman's trying to, and the person who's narrating actually says she's going to get killed. She's trying to get close enough to take a selfie with a baby buffalo. Now, I don't think you need to have a degree in biology to understand that you don't get between a baby and the mother if the mother's larger than you of any species. And all of a sudden, I'm guessing it's the mother, but a buffalo comes up behind the woman, snags her with the horn, and flips her in the air. And as Betty Boop says, she lost her pants. I have misplaced my pants. Now, the woman apparently got knocked out, but she survived. And the video lives on as it should. And so they tell you at those parks, these animals are wild. This is not a zoo. It's not a petting zoo. Don't get out and try to take selfies with the moose or the buffalo or the mountain lions. No, these are not animatronic. These are real wild animals. And people are like, oh, I'm going to go get my picture taken. Hang on. I'm going to get my picture taken with a buffalo. It's not how it works. So Fred Stewart says, hey, a white-tailed deer could possibly kill you. I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those things. Get one fired up enough, Canadian Robot Lady says, the lack of respect drives her crazy. You should give wildlife proper distance and respect. And write that one down. And let's use that as an outro one of these days, where just out of the blue, you're going to say, thank you for watching Leto's Law and give wildlife proper distance and respect. Oh, boy. Lems, yeah, selfies is the modern day Darwin test. Yeah, that's true too. Mike Geertz, it's okay. I love animals. And it's funny, and I'm sure Mike will attest to this. And by the way, Mike, I got to tell you a great story. I thought of you when I was up north. I was talking to a young couple, and one of them mentioned working in the area. I go, what do you do? And the guy goes, I'm a farrier. And I thought he said furrier, like a fur hunter. I go, what was that? He goes, farrier. He goes, I'm the guy. I'm one of the guys who puts horseshoes on horses. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that was actually like a full-time job for somebody these days. But the guy worked on Mackinac Island, where in the summertime, there are hundreds of horses out there that pull around wagons. People can ride them. People can rent them. And the guy goes, I am a farrier. I shoe horses. And I'm like, wow. And we got to talking about it. I was asking, what kind of shoes do you use? Because of the fact that these guys are walking on streets, blacktop for the most part. They use different kinds of shoes, of course, based on whether they're pulling something or not. JP points out the farrier comes from the French fer, which is, of course, the same root as ferrous for iron. And so ferro cheval would be horseshoe. Very good. Cool. That's good to know. Mike Geertz, I spend about $350 every 6 weeks, but only have one horse wearing shoes right now. Baby needs new shoes. $350. Wow. And he says they make rubber pads that protect the hooves. Very cool. And they even make shoes that help pop out snow and ice. Very cool. And it reminded me of a story, and I told the kid this because he was substantially younger than I was. But the city of Detroit has mounted police. The city of Detroit mounted police department has gotten pretty small over the years. And now they generally just show up at parades and things like that. But they would also do this. They also had a demonstration team that would go out and ride at state fairs and things like that. And so I can tell you that I was reading an article about the situation the city of Detroit was in back when they went bankrupt a few years ago. And one of the weird things they had going on was there were so many different unions. Every single department seemingly had its own union, and every single subgroup had its own. And at one point in time, there was a farriers union in Detroit. That is, the guys who shod the horses formed a union, and occasionally they would get together and collectively bargain with the city of Detroit for the job of shoeing horses. And as the city of Detroit's horse force got smaller, it got down to where they only had one farrier left. And he was the union. He was the steward. He was the entire body of the union. And every so often, he'd have to go in and negotiate a contract for himself, by himself. And they were pointing out that seems a little absurd on some level, but you understand how that goes. So that was my only other understanding of a farrier, although I hadn't known what the word was when the guy said it to me. So there you go. Mark Sparks, I shoe flies. My job doesn't have a name. Interesting. You could be the official swatter. Keith Gregory, here in Ohio, the Amish will shoe your horses cheap. Will they? Question is, I assume since they do it so often, they're probably good at it, right? Canadian Robot Lady's checking out. Time to giddy up on out of here on a horsey note. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. One of those rare occasions where you got a chance to stick around for the whole show. Dixie Champagne suggests taking the bacon vodka and making a Waffle House shooter with maple syrup and butterscotch schnapps, which is either really, really good or be just something that would just knock you over. Interesting. So, Badger Monkey says never leave home without your towel and never leave Earth without it either. Amateur shooter Steve White, are there more horses behinds than horses? Yeah, you'd think there'd be a 1-to-1 correlation, wouldn't you? Betty Boop, thanks, Steve. Have a great day. Thank you for checking in. Hey, I'm going to wrap it up, too. We've been on for over an hour and a half. But I'm sorry I missed last week, but we're back this week. And like I said, from here on out, every Sunday, 1 o'clock, barring holidays and so on. But I appreciate it, everybody. Again, thank you very much. Thanks for subscribing. Those of you who helped me get that, I greatly appreciate it. And remind me at 200, I got another story to tell you, the 200 story. Until then, you behave yourself. Bye-bye.